Hey guys, welcome to the final lecture in the lighting section of this course. In this lecture, I'm going to be creating a basic lighting setup for the final scene. Now, as you can see, we've got our default fire hydrant in here that we've created in the modeling section. And we've gone over all the lamp types. So what we're going to do now is talk about how to add some lighting to the setup here. Now, I wanted to give you guys a little bit more of a broad spectrum in terms of examples when we were going over how to use multiple lights in a scene, and it'd be a little hard to do that with just lighting one object. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created a scene that we're going to put around the fire hydrant, and it's also going to be good because it'll show you how to import models that you might download or get paid for from the internet from other modeling sites if you don't want to model your own stuff. So let's get into that. I'm going to click this bottom layer here to turn that layer on, the top layer off. I'm going to File, Import, and the file that I saved was an OBJ file, which is a 3D format. So I'm going to click this, and I'm going to navigate to the Models directory here for our course, and then load the Sidewalk Scene OBJ file. Now I'm not going to change any of the settings over here. I'm just going to click Import. And it should all come in. There'll be separate objects, but it should all come in at the same time. And since we selected this bottom layer, that's where it's going to import to. So we should have our fire hydrant on one layer and then our scene on the other layer. And if I shift select the top layer, it will combine the two and show them at the same time. So we've got both sets of models showing together. And so as you can see, fire hydrant hasn't moved. It's still at the origin of the scene, and I've just put all these objects around it. So when you import the scene, it should come in. You shouldn't have to move anything. You should just be ready to go. And when we get into the texturing section next, I'll show you how to texture the fire hydrant, and then I'll have another version of the scene that we'll already have textured, so you guys can just see how that looks. So let's get into some of the lighting. For this scene, I wanted to do kind of a comprehensive example using as many lights as I could to kind of show you guys how to do multiple light scene. I didn't want to just use one or two. I wanted to kind of show you what it would look like if you were trying to utilize cinematic lighting, three-point lighting techniques, things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a moonlit scene. And so let's start by creating a sun lamp. So I'm going to go to the spacebar menu for the global search, type in lamp, I'm going to add a lamp, and I'm going to make it a sun. Now I'm going to move this out of the way so I can kind of see what angle we're going for. I'm going to kind of tilt it this way, kind of aim it over at the fire hydrant, kind of at a steep angle, and we're just going to get kind of an angle like this. We got to have a camera too, so make sure we add a camera. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to kind of line my view up where I think the camera should sit approximately. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut to put my camera in this view. So if you've got a camera selected, all you have to do once you're rotated into the view that you want is hit Control Alt or Option and then 0 on your numpad, and it will automatically put the camera view in the view of your 3D viewport. It's got to be selected, so make sure that's selected. But it's a little bit quicker to kind of rotate this into position once we've got it put in that view. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the camera settings, and I'm going to set this to focal length of 100 millimeters. Kind of give us a little more of that telephoto look I was talking about earlier. Move it back, and for this example, we're going to be using 16:9 widescreen format, like you'd see on a typical movie frame. So I'm using 2000 by 1124 pixels across, and we're going to keep it at about 75% till we're going to do the final render, just to keep things a little bit more compact in the screen view. And so let's go ahead and kind of preview what's going on already. Okay, so we haven't changed anything. That's kind of the angle that we're going to want. Let's go ahead and start tweaking this light. So I'm going to right click the sun, and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to name it moon, just so we can kind of keep everything organized. And then if I go to the lighting settings, I'm going to change this to sort of a nice little offset bluish teal sort of color. And we're going to change the energy down to something like 0.1, something really low. And then I'm going to make sure turn shadows on. Bring this up from black to something a little bit more really dark gray. And then we're going to make this a really saturated blue color. Turn the samples up to something like 6. And soft size, I want to be at 2. We're going to get a kind of a softer edge shadow here. So let's go ahead and render that again. Okay, so as you can see, we got a nice little kind of moonlit thing going here with the key light. Shadows are pretty harsh right now, so let's go ahead and see if we can work on that. Now you could bring this up a little bit, but the higher you go up here, the less realistic your shadows are going to look. They're not going to be as contrasted. So I'm going to keep this pretty low, and instead what I'm going to do is go ahead and add a Hemi lamp. So let's go to lamp, let's find Hemi, and again I'm just going to move this up and out of the way so you guys can see what we're doing. Now I don't want to aim this down like I did with the moonlight. I want this to act as a fill light, kind of bouncing off the sidewalk, around the scene, things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this low just to represent kind of the fact that it's down here bouncing around. I'm going to rotate this up at this angle instead of down, and then make sure that it's kind of rotated this direction for a bounce. And we're going to set this to something about half as much as your key light with the moon. So if the moon is at 0.1, this needs to be at something like 0.05. And again, we're going to make this a really saturated bluish color. Maybe bring that down a little bit. So let's test this again. Okay, so you can see we got a nice little fill here. That's going to actually really do nicely for kind of making it seem like we got a little bit more of a global illumination going on with the light bouncing around the scene, as it would, you know, in the real world. So I'm actually going to bring this down even a little bit darker, because I don't want that much fill, because we're going to be adding in a lot more lighting. So I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to re-render that. Okay. So it's good right there. Let's bring the intensity up to 0.075. And then let's render it again. Okay, so real subtle. There's not a lot of bright fill going on here, but it's just enough you can start making out some of the details in here, and that's right where we want it. So pretty good. Let's get into some more of the lighting. All right, so we got our main lighting for the moon. Now we're going to start adding in restaurant lighting that's coming through these windows back here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create another lamp, and I'm going to do an area lamp. Now we're going to want to rotate this in this viewport, and we're going to go 90 degrees this direction. I'm going to move this back and sort of get this into the approximate location we're going to want it, which is right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and start scaling this up, because what we're going to do is we're going to match the shape of this glass right here on the window for this door. And what that's going to do is it's going to kind of give us a nice little shape that will spill into the rest of the scene, kind of the shape of this door. So it doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of getting close. And one thing you want to do is make sure that you come over here, and we're going to set the color to something a little bit more of this saturated orange color. We're going to bring the energy down to something like, let's try 0.1 just to start off with. Distance, let's go down to 15. And let's look at that. Alright, so we've got shadows that are off right now. Let's turn ray shadows on. Samples up to 6 again. Again, we're going to bring this up a little bit, go a really saturated red, and then let's see, for the soft size, let's make this something like 5. Something pretty big. Now, when you do that, it's going to do this weird thing where it gets really big out here. So by changing the soft size, it's actually going to scale that way up. I'm just going to go ahead and scale this back down, and it should keep your soft size the same over here. But let's get this back down to where it's manageable, and let's just give that a test render and see what happens. Okay, so you can see we kind of got this this light spilling out from where this window is going to be into this little corridor and onto the backlight and rim lighting this fire hydrant here. So I'm going to make this a little more red than orange. Put some more red into that. Kind of get a nice warm glow going on there. And then I'm going to take this way down to like 0.03. So we want it to be, you know, pouring into the street, but not so much that it's like destroying, blowing out this wall, things like that. Alright, so not bad. Let's go ahead and duplicate this light, bring it over to this other window, size it up to be about the same size. And once we get it in location, we're going to move that back out to where it's in front of the glass. Just in front, right about there. And we're going to keep the settings similar. I'm going to go a little bit more yellow with this one, and kind of keep all the settings the same and just see what that looks like. Okay, not bad. So we got this warm light pouring in here from this glass, and this window's a little bit bigger and then not as obscured because of this little inset walkway. So I'm going to make this a little brighter so that it hits things a little more out here. Let's go back up to 0.1 and just see what that looks like. Okay, yeah, I'm liking that a lot better. So again, it's getting a little bit of this this shading over here and the lighting on the back edge of the fire hydrant. But what I really like is that it's pouring into the street. You're getting this nice little illumination on the sidewalk, and then of course you're getting the illumination around the window frame. Because you got to remember, when you're lighting, texturing is going to come into play and play a big part of how this is all going to look too. So these are not going to be solid materials. They're going to be glass. You're going to see through this. You're going to see into a lit environment, and that's what we're using to motivate these decisions. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and add a spotlight to the other side of the building over here, and this is going back into what we're talking about with cinematic lighting and kind of using motivation for the scene to dictate your decisions. I wanted a light over here that kind of offset some contrast with and rim lit this little sidewalk sign we got here. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, we're going to do something a little bit more yellowish. Bring this down to 1. Let's turn the ray shadows on. Bring this up. Go warm. Samples up to 6. Soft size, let's make that a 2. And then size, let's make that a 60 degree. And blend all the way up. So that's going to give us a little bit more of a lit edge over here for the sidewalk sandwich sign. You can see it's pouring over a little bit into the fire hydrant here, giving us a little bit more illumination. But as you can see, with all the soft size turned up on these shadows, you're still getting a nice main key light shadow coming from the moon here, and then it's being supplemented by some of these other shadows that are hitting these things here. And so it's doing pretty nice. Let's go ahead and do one more thing. Well, a couple more things. Let's add a lamp again, and we're gonna actually add a little bit more lighting, sort of like a little light that's up here in the top of this corridor. I'm gonna make this blue. Take the energy down to 0.1. 15 for the distance. Turn the shadows on. Same process. This should be getting pretty familiar by now. Saturation there. Sampling up to 6. And soft size I'm going to leave down at like 0.5. Okay, so that's going to give us kind of a little bit more overhead illumination in the back side of this corridor. It's going to round out some of the contours on this handle right here for the door. You're going to see a little bit more of this edge for you know, this menu that's hanging up on the side of this restaurant here. And as you can see, it's got this nice little cast shadow that's coming down here. So that'll be nice. Now it's a little bright right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down to 0.025 because we want this to be pretty subtle. And again, you got to think about power in your scene. You don't want certain things to overpower others, so I just want this to be subtle. It's coming in nice. We've still got main light coming in from the window here that's illuminating this kind of this orangish color here, but then you got this nice little kind of glow that's coming from the top here. It's coming down here, so that's good. One other thing I'm going to do real fast is kind of come in here and just kick sort of a spotlight onto this to show you guys a little bit more of a fill on that, because the fire hydrant is really the you know, the main object we're trying to light here. It's kind of our hero object. So I'm going to bring this up, rotate this into place here. Now I'm going to turn the blend all the way up again, but I'm going to turn the size of the cone down to something really slim like that. Turn this to something a little more blue again. I'm not going to go all the way down to the ground with the distance. I'm just going to bring that up there. Clip, I'm going to change to something a little shallower. So once it gets past this point, it's not really going to light anything. So again, let's rotate this into place. And real quick, let's see what this looks like. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting a little bit more of a fill here on the fire hydrant there. And I'm going to bring this down a little bit in terms of the angle so that we're getting a little bit more of what we're looking for. I'm going to take the saturation up, bring this down, and that'll be good. So guys, that's going to about cover it for lighting this scene the way we're going to want to. And we will tweak these lights a little bit when we get into the final rendering. But overall, that's kind of the look we're going for. And so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to move on to the next section where I start showing you guys how to texture in Blender. So hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you there.